everyone, to another edition of On the Trail in Search of Living Legends. It's going to be Season 5, Episode 24. And Nick, you want to introduce everyone to our guest tonight?
Well, this is Bettina Moss. She's like the first lady of podcasts over here on Cryptids. She's one of the very first females to do it out there and to actually be successful.
Yep.
Bettina, as I know, and speaking to her over the years, she's had her own encounters. She had an encounter with a Dogman, and I think she was pretty lucky in that encounter. And, why don't we let her tell you? Bettina, what state are you in? We don't have to go what city or anything, but what state are you in?
I'm in the state of Sweet Home, Alabama.
Oh, yeah. Sweet Home, Alabama. I love that song.
Woo! Yeah, me too.
And from what you've told me, you had your first introduction to Dogman basically when you saw it near your parents' house. Is that true?
Yes. My first Dogman, my first ever Dogman sighting was in November of 2013. Like I said, I told you, November
2013.
It was 2013.
My God. I wonder if it was the same one that I saw. It's September 13th of 2013. Maybe you decided to go to a hotter climate.
I guess so. But
damn.
It was the week before Thanksgiving, and I had gone to visit my parents like I would any other weekend, to go visit with them. And I got over there, like I always tell people, like during hunting season every year, my ex-husband would go hunting. Sometimes he'd be gone for 3 or 4 days. And so, like, instead of staying at home the whole weekend with me and my dog just by ourselves, I would just go and elect to go spend the weekend, spend time with my parents, and let I didn't have a fenced-in backyard at my house. So, like, that was good because my dog got to run around, play in the backyard, free off the leash. So I pull up next to their house, like I would any other weekend. They had 3 vehicles already in their driveway, so there was always nowhere for me to park in the driveway. I always had to park on the street below. And just like any other time, I pull up underneath. I don't know if it's an oak tree or what kind, or an elm tree. I'm gonna say an elm tree, but I'm not sure.
It probably was an elm tree if it's where you are.
Yeah.
If it's in Alabama. Now let me set this up for the audience. Your parents' house is in front of you, and you're parked on the right-hand side of the street.
So it's hard to explain because like where I'm parked at on the road, the side, it's almost like where I'm parked at, I'm at the side of the house. There's a side door, but we always call it, it's not the front door really.
Right. No, I understand. Yeah.
And it had one of those ranch style houses, the ones from like the 80s or more, the rectangular shaped houses, not the ones like today. So it kind of wraps around. So that's the side of the house, but that's where we always went in. That's where the driveway and stuff was. But the front of the house is on the opposite side. The front of the house is not the side where the woods.
And the so-called woods towards the back and the sides of the house, was it cornfields or was it woods?
So there's both. Directly behind the chain link fence starts off the crop is sometimes it's rotated. So sometimes it's a cotton field, sometimes it's a cornfield, sometimes it's a soybean field.
Right.
The last time I was out there, it was a cotton field. There was still cotton on the ground, but it rotates.
But in November of 2013, was it a cornfield?
I don't remember because it was dark that night. It was 8 o'clock at night. It was dark. And remember, I told you the Cadillac headlights are garbage. It's very terrible. And so I pull up. Luckily, I didn't cut the car off that night. And if I had to paint just to kind of slow it down to tell y'all again, like, so I'm on the side of the house, like as far as like where my car is parked, but that's also wrapped around to the back side of the house also because that's, the woods and all that and stuff is back there. So I'm parked, and as I'm parked there, I'm trying to gather all the things that I have like off the passenger seat, off the floor, because I wanted to gather as much as I could out from inside of the car before I got out, because I already knew that Dogman and Bigfoot exist because I've been listening to stories about that kind of stuff for years, and I'm just a scary type person, and it was dark outside. There was no street lights on that end of the road. So I basically felt like, let me just gather everything I can. That way I can spend the least amount of time outside of the car as possible.
Right.
I wasn't thinking, though, at the time that I was going to actually see a Dogman that night. I just really was like, oh, just let me gather everything.
Right.
So after I gathered everything I needed off of the passenger side, off the floor, and off the passenger seat, then I was about to cut the car off and get ready to get out and go back to the back door and get the suitcase out of the car. But I instead I looked straight up. I'm already facing the woods anyway, so I'm still looking straight ahead. The headlights are still on.
Right.
And when I looked straight ahead, I looked and I'm like, I just stopped for a minute. And I'm like, oh my God. I know that. And I can laugh about it now. It's not funny back then, but I was like, I know that ain't what I think it is. So in order to make sure my mind wasn't playing tricks on me, I put the high beams on it. When I put the high beams on this, whatever it was, I didn't know just yet. I thought I knew it was, but I just didn't want to say this is the Dogman until I verified it. When I put the high beams on it, my worst fears were confirmed. I'm looking at, for all intents and purposes, for people to understand what I'm looking at a damn werewolf right now.
Mm.
I'm looking at something. It has its back to me. It's got its back to me. It's jet black. It's standing about 8.5 to 9 feet tall. It's blacker. It's black. Even though there was no street lights on that end, this thing was blacker than the blackness. I saw it with those low beam garbage headlights on. That's how dark it was. I saw that.
Now, what time was it?
About 8 something ish, but it was before 9 o'clock.
Right.
But I do know what time it was because I know my dad used to tell me, well, make sure you get here before too late because I'm gonna be going to bed in a minute, and you just go ahead and stand out there and wait if you come after we get ready to go to bed. And so I knew, okay, it's almost 9 o'clock. Let me hurry up and get over there. So it was about 8:15, between 8:15 and 8:30, somewhere around that time, the week before Thanksgiving. So when I put those high beams on it, Nick, its back was to me, but then it slowly turned to face the car. When it faced the car, I'm going to tell you my thoughts on why it did that.
An oh shit moment.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like it remained still for all that time. It knew the headlights were garbage. It knew that I couldn't see it very well. And I feel like in its mind, it probably thought, if I just stand here long enough in a few minutes, because they know enough about people to be able to tell when people drive cars, they cut the headlights and stuff off. I just feel like that they know if I just stand here long enough, they'll never see me. But I didn't do that. When I put the high beams on it, I feel like I spotlighted it. And now it's like, oh, let me turn around and see who this is behind me right now. And when it turned around, like any dog or anything like that, or any coyote or natural animal, they're going to turn back and they're going to look at the car. But they're not going to have the wherewithal to look into the driver's seat, into the windshield, into the driver's seat, and directly into your eyes. Like, it literally turned to look into my eyes. And I'm looking at it, it's looking at me, and we had eye contact anywhere from 8 to 10 seconds. So the encounter was really quick. But before I go on further, I'm sitting up here and I'm thinking in my mind, oh my God, immediately a tear starts rolling down my cheek because as I've told on some other shows I've been on before, the oh my God moment was number one. I'm looking at something that's not supposed to exist, even though I believed in them. I'm in awe and I'm shocked and I'm amazed and I'm scared too at the same time. And then the next thought in my head is, please God, don't let that thing walk over here, because I know that they can open car doors, and I know that sometimes
open car doors.
Well, sometimes my automatic doors don't lock, and so when the automatic doors don't lock, because it's been plenty of times I would pull up at home in my driveway, and my husband would walk out and just open the door, and I'm like, that's supposed to be locked, and that's happened multiple times. So I was worried in that moment, please don't let it walk over here, because this will be one of those times when the doors didn't lock. And if I had to say telepathic speaking happened, this will be the one and only time that I'll say, if it happened ever, this will be that moment I say this is when that occurred, because it's almost like it answered my thought. And I always say, I don't remember if I said that out loud or whether I said it in my head, but either way, it responded to what I said. And it said, "Oh, it's just you. No big deal. No big deal." Like,
I thought maybe it would have said, "Oh, dessert has arrived."
or maybe it had already eaten that night. I'm thinking it had maybe, no, I don't
Probably
even
ate.
think that. Either that or it was getting ready to go on the hunt. I think that
Right.
it was getting ready to head into that trail, and I'll explain why I say that later.
Okay.
But I want to give you all the details of what it looked like.
Great.
Now you don't think that at that time you didn't think that mom and dad may have got a new pet?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Okay.
Absolutely not. Because if you just saw this thing was like, if you took Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the day and you put a Rottweiler's head on his body,
Mm.
and then you make Arnold Schwarzenegger maybe 2 or 3 feet taller, then that's what you got.
Ooh.
Because that thing, I have never seen nothing like. Now,
muscular.
Yeah. Oh yeah, very much so. It didn't have the German Shepherd type head. There was one that I know of that did have that type of head on the property, but I'll get to that one later. But that first one, it had more of a Rottweiler or pit bull type head, broad, short broad snout, the cropped out ears. I don't remember seeing the tail when it had its back to me.
Bad picture, but this one maybe.
I have a picture that I can send you.
Yeah, this is a really bad picture. I got some new ones. I guess my printer ran out of ink that day. I'm gonna have to get it reprinted.
Literally, Nick, if you literally take, I'm gonna say maybe a few different things might have been different about it. But if you take a pit bull, or not even a pit bull, more like a Rottweiler type head,
or a Doberman, maybe,
or Mastiff.
No, it had a broad snout. It was that type of look.
All right.
So
like
if you take
a Roddy,
Rottweiler, pit bull, or a Mastiff, or that type of dog with a shorter, broad snout,
that's why I was showing you the one I showed you, because the better picture of that actually is what you're describing.
Maybe even Cane Corso then, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Jet black. It didn't have the amber eyes like most people have described in their encounters. It had that brilliant, it was like that turquoise blue of those tropical island ocean. When you see those, but you take that color, make that the eye color, and then make it luminescent, and that's exactly what that Dogman eye color was. So it was glowing from within. I don't remember seeing a tail when it had its back to me. The upper chest area was, it had the pecs, it had the abs, it had the tapered waist. I remember it had long arms, but they were very muscular. And it had the hawk style legs when I was looking at it. I can't remember paying attention too much to the feet. I was more in tune, I think, to keeping eye contact with it. I didn't want to take my eyes off of its eyes. I was drawn in by that. Because
you weren't thinking about starting the car up and hitting reverse? I mean, at any point? Yeah.
The car was still on. The car was never off. Like, it's on all this time.
Oh, but he probably calmed you down by saying, "Oh, it's just you."
I didn't. Well, it's dark, number one. So the highway is not too far back behind me, but in order to get that, so that end of the neighborhood, that's a cul-de-sac.
Right.
So I would have had to make either a really long drive backwards or a quick backwards whip around a curve and then peel back out the other way. So by the time I would have done all that, it would have already been over there. And then the speed that they have, if anything, if it had started to approach, if anything, what I would have done, I would have laid on the horn and hope Mama, Daddy, and the neighbors right there came outside.
Yeah, let them get eaten up instead of me, because,
I would feel like their safety in numbers is going to feel like, there's other people out here right now. Because the fact that it remained still like that for so long, that said to me that it didn't want to be seen.
Right.
It didn't know who was back there, who had the headlights on it. And I feel like that It knew enough about the people who lived on that end of the neighborhood. I think it knew what time to come out. It knew what time everybody was going to pretty much be in the house for the night.
Sure.
Nobody's out there, because there's a neighbor who lives across the street from them who would come out every night to smoke on his porch. But after a certain time, he wouldn't come out anymore to smoke. So I think this thing knows who's coming in, who's coming out, and how often, and so it's not worried about people seeing it. I caught it off guard that night.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean,
definitely.
so close to your parents' house. I mean, that's amazing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it is wild. The head description really fascinates me. We've only had what, one other person, well, since season 5 started, we've had one other person describe something like that,
Right.
with that massive Rottweiler looking head, kind of.
I have pictures I can send to y'all on that. That one, I can say that night, that particular one, can I say that I ever saw that one again? I can't say for sure.
Okay.
But what I do know is that I did, for a fact, see another one on that same trail in broad daylight, in the summertime, and I can't remember what year this was now, but I do know for a fact, on that same trail, another one that was about 8.5, 9 feet tall, standing about midway back, further down the trail from where that one was standing that night, because the one that night was getting ready to head back there into those woods. This one was further back. So, but it was broad daylight. I'm sitting out in the car smoking a cigarette, not really thinking about anything, because I'm not worried about sitting outside in the daytime. I'm in the car smoking. I'm just not worried about it.
Yeah.
But you know how like you're smoking and you're scrolling through your phone and really not thinking about anything. And then you just kind of, from time to time, just kind of look around, just look at your surroundings for whatever reason. And I looked straight ahead, and I kind of chuckled this time, because I was kind of like, wow, this thing is real bold. Like, it's broad daylight. You just standing out there in the middle like that. But this time, the whole body wasn't visible. This time, only the head and the snout was visible. And
Okay.
I'm going to try to share my screen, Bettina, and see if, I don't know, can you see it?
There we go.
This one right here. This one right here.
I see what you're pointing to.
See, it's got the broad snout. Type
I
3
guess
variant 2.
I would have to say that that's probably the closest
Yeah.
to it, but
I
even
mean, the
still,
variant 4
I was
down
gonna
here.
say 4 too.
The
Yeah.
variant 4 is extremely, how can I put it, super muscular. It's like a bodybuilder on super steroids, and it's really big, like not fat, but big, huge.
Big, burly. Yeah.
Yeah, burly.
do you think that there are just 7 types?
I think there's probably more, but this is from speaking to people. They have just they're describing it to an artist. Now,
Right.
if you look here, the type 3 variant 3, I'm trying to explain to people, people think it's a Sasquatch, but the reason they have this up here is because it has the fingers with the claws, and it has a tail and the feet with claws. Sasquatch has fingernails that go around the fingers, because they don't take care of their nails, of course, but that's what you would get in a footprint of a Sasquatch. This one here, that's the reason why they put it in there like that. But I'm thinking either type 3 variant 2 or the variant 4. If you're saying like Schwarzenegger, maybe it is the 4, because they are the soldier one. They're the super huge, wide and big. And the second biggest would be the variant 3 here. This is the one I saw.
Yeah, that one I call Anubis. But what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna send you the picture of the one I have
All right.
as soon as I get a chance.
All right, let me go off sharing here. I'll stop sharing.
Because it's pretty. The black one I was just telling you about with that head like that, the head is huge. I will say, I told you I thought I saw that exact same one on one other occasion.
Right.
Now, the day that I was sitting in the car smoking in the broad daylight, I think this might have been around noon, 1, 2 o'clock-ish. I'm at their house again, parked in that same spot, and I guess that trail it's a popular trail. So I'm gonna assume that they frequent that trail to come forth to watch the people in the neighborhood. Why else would you come forward in the open like that when there's all that deep woods real far back there? Why would you come up to the front? They're watching people.
Sure.
And for whatever reason, they had some type of interest in watching me when I'd be out there smoking. And so it kind of makes me wonder sometimes when people say that they're attracted to tobacco smoke. And then I get to thinking about it and I'm looking, it's like, you know what? Other than that first time, like every time that you were out there, that you had a sighting and you always saw them out there, you were always smoking. Did that bring them in, or were they just nosy and were they always there? How long have they been there?
They might equate tobacco smoke with humans.
Native Americans.
Yeah.
That's what I was just gonna say.
Native Americans. He's right. Jay is spot on.
Absolutely.
Now, something I'm always curious, I didn't get to ask you the first time we talked about it, is did you went into your parents' house the next morning? I mean, you stayed overnight, right?
Yes, I stayed overnight.
The next morning, did you happen to venture out to look there in that spot where you saw it to see if it maybe had half a deer or something over there, or if it had eaten something, or what it was possibly doing there?
No, because I wasn't of that mindset at that point in time of a podcaster or a researcher. I was traumatized. I was not even traumatized. I was traumatized that night, but in my mind, I just didn't want to have any parts of it. I just knew that I wasn't going to be outside or anywhere near that part of that trip. I knew any of that. I knew I wasn't just going to go out there that next day and let Chloe play in the backyard like I had originally planned.
Yeah, you would have sent the dog out there and he would have nailed it and eaten it. Say, oh, thank you, breakfast.
She would have been like a chicken nugget.
That would have been exactly what it would have been.
Yeah.
I have a field investigation that we had completed in New Jersey, down in Lambertville, New Jersey, populated area, an old city. I mean, really old town. I love going there. They got all these little shops and they got these old houses. And this one lady lost her little 5-pound whatever dog. I don't know what they call these things, but she let out little Muffy, and little Muffy went, yelp, and got nailed by a Dogman, most likely, because there was footprints. There was footprints that we traced to the river. And then some of my members from New Hope, which is across the river, who also come to that side of the river to go to the different merchants there and everything in the bakery. 3 of them said, we're not fishing on that river anymore. We're not going there anymore. And they're telling me about things that they saw that they didn't think was real either. So it's now coming out, a little town where you would never think. But yeah, they will grab your dog, and that would be a little chicken nugget.
Sure.
Yes.
My.
And they enjoyed that. At times, like after I don't know how much time it took, if it took a year or a couple of years for me to finally get to the point where I felt comfortable enough. It just, even in the daytime, like to let Chloe go out there and run around the backyard. I guess I felt brave enough at that point. It's bright daylight, and there's nothing to worry about. You're in the backyard. If anything happens, just call Chloe over and just get out of the yard. But these things were bold. So when I say bold, if you had asked me a few minutes ago, Nick, if there was a cornfield or like what was the surroundings, how's it set up? So if y'all remember back in the 80s, like people weren't doing the wooden fences as much as they do today. Like then it was like chain link fences. Right. So I'm in the backyard, and directly behind that chain link fence is like a ditch, just a little bit of an embankment, like that kind of goes down a little bit and then it comes back up and is directly into the field. I can't say what crop right now, but the field. But then right there attached to the field is the wood line, a tree line that kind of wraps around and goes around the borders of that field. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
So, as it comes like straight ahead, like, facing the part of the trees, I guess the tree line that's facing the fence, like it's like, look, I guess, I don't know how to call it. If a Dogman or anything is standing there, it can actually watch from that standpoint. There's enough tree cover for them to stand there and be completely still, dark enough, and blend in with the trees and stuff in order to watch me standing inside of that backyard.
Dense forest area enough for them to hide behind, but.
Now, the scary part about that is that I don't know if I made it sound like it's far away, because it's not. Like, basically, if I'd have just, and I've never been able to jump over fences like people used to do, but if I were to jump over that fence and take probably about 30, 40, 50 steps, like, that's how close the Dogman were, that would stand there and watch from that vantage point, whether I was right there in that backyard or I was up under their lattice carport. Like, that is where they stayed. That was their spot. But there's been times when I was actually in the backyard, and I'll tell you about Anubis, or the one I call the Black German Shepherd Dogman, in a minute. But there's one time I can remember in particular, I'm in the backyard with Chloe, and she's running around playing. And then there was, during this particular encounter, I get nervous sometimes talking about it, but on this one day, I had this feeling. I don't know to say a feeling or my conscience or what it was, or just a thought implanted into my mind, but I had this feeling. Look up and look to the left and up in the trees. And when I did that, and I looked over there, and when I looked over, I saw something blacker than black, like extremely black, so black that it's not a shadow. It's not the shadow. It's not tree rot. It's not any of that. There's not a tire up in the tree. This is black. The epitome of blackness, a void. And it was so black that I was like, I knew immediately. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't see any facial features or anything like that on it. But I know right now, I didn't just get that thought, look up and over to the left. I looked up and directly where it was. So I don't know if this thing was telling me and it wanted me to see it. Maybe it didn't say that. Maybe this was like my conscience or a guardian angel warning me or whatever. But so when I saw this, Chloe's running around happy-go-lucky, having a good time, and like she wouldn't come to me, because I knew at that moment when I saw, I don't know what that is, but I know we're supposed to get out of this backyard right now. And I try to get Chloe. Chloe wouldn't come to me. She's having a good time. I walk up to her, and I'm trying not to panic, because I didn't want this thing to know that I had spotted it. I didn't want it to know that I was afraid. I tried to go on and act as if we're still playing. And I'm like, Chloe, come here. Chloe's still barking and playing. And every time I walk closer towards her, she takes off running full speed, like out of my control. And I still didn't want to run. But at this point, I'm getting angry. Like, Chloe, come here now. I'm scared now. Get over here. She hunkered down to the ground. I picked her up. Now, before I left that gate at the front of the chain link fence, I stopped. I had to stop, because I felt like if I take a picture right now, if there's facial features, if there's something there and it'll make it out on camera, then this will catch it. Because with the naked eye, I could see that there's something there, but I could not make out any facial features. I took the picture, looked at my phone before I left that gate. And when I looked at the phone and I saw what I saw, I was like, oh, hell no. I got out of that backyard immediately. And that was my last time that day. I think, matter of fact, my last time that weekend, I did not go back out in that backyard or do anything after dark for the rest of that weekend for what I saw.
You mean to tell me it was behind you and you didn't pull one of these things? Selfie?
No, Nick, it wasn't behind me. I had left. I was back.
Oh.
So I had left. I was getting ready to come back to the front of the gate. I was in the middle of the yard originally. So I'm like, you, like, right now I'm facing you. Like, you're me, like in the middle of the yard.
Yeah.
Behind you is where they were to me originally. I'm in the middle of the yard where you are.
Okay.
But now I've left and I'm getting ready to head back to the front because I'm getting ready to leave the gate. But before I left the gate, I took a picture first. And when I saw what I was looking at, this was another one of those ones with the huge black head. Huge. Another one with a short snout. You can see the little dog nose. You can see all of that. Doesn't have this has a short snout, just like the one I was telling you about before. I call it a Rottweiler, cropped ears. But this thing was not happy. It was snarling. It was showing teeth. I said, hell no. That was the last time for that whole weekend I came back out as far as doing anything. And it also changed me. It was no point in time before that I couldn't go out 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. I just wanted to go outside and have a cigarette. But, mom and daddy gone to bed. But even though it's dark, I wasn't worried about that. We grew up in that house. Mom and daddy moved in there in like 1985. I wasn't worried about that. So anything that's back there, possums and raccoons, skunks, stuff like that. But Dogman. But so after those encounters, I changed the way I did stuff. Like I wouldn't, even though I had a key to their house, there was never a time after that when I would get out of the car and just go up at night if I got there after dark and just go up and like take a chance that now maybe daddy locked the screen door. Now I got to wait outside the car. I mean, I got to wait outside the door for him to get up because sometimes it might take 5 minutes for him to get his pajamas and stuff like that on.
Yeah.
But back in the day before Dogman, it wasn't an issue. I wasn't scared of that. I wasn't worried about anything. After that, anytime I got over there and it was dark, I said, Daddy, I'm outside. Unlock the door and stand at the door and do not walk off. Stand there the whole time or escort me into the house.
And did you ever tell them why?
Yes, and they think it's ridiculous. They don't believe it.
Really?
They think it's ridiculous. They think it's ridiculous. They think I'm crazy. And they're like, well, we lived there all these years. You mean to tell me like, there's probably just, they would come up with all kind of crazy silliness for what they felt like it was. And that's just their rational mind trying to do it. Yeah. And I get it. But I think that, certain people in your life, I think that they should be credible enough for you to believe them if you know they're not, prone to flights of fancy or hallucinating or anything like that. I think it ought to be easy enough for people to differentiate whether you're sane or not. Like if somebody tells you that they've seen a ghost and you know that they don't just make up stuff, then you should believe them.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Your parents are among the number one group. There's the number two group where I've interviewed people and they went back and told their parents what they saw. And the parents said, sit down. We got to tell you what's going on. And they would tell them what's going on. And grandma and grandpa even saw it. Your parents probably never saw it. Just don't believe in it. And that's the end of that. They're on the other end.
I do think this might be a possibility, but I don't know for sure. But I do know, and I asked my dad at one point, I said, so you mean to tell me you never seen anything that you thought was strange back there? You always been all this time like out there doing stuff in the backyard, cutting grass, grilling, doing stuff in the shed and everything else. You never. He said, well, there was this one time that I saw 2 big coyotes back there running around that field. I said, Daddy, in all the years that we lived out here, and I understand this is wooded, but other than that one time you saw those 2 coyotes not too long ago, when was the time that you ever saw a coyote before or after that? He said, well, come to think of it, I never saw one before or after that. Right. Because we never saw any coyotes back there. I mean, you might see a fox randomly every blue moon, but we got coyotes here. But you saw 2 big coyotes?
Right. 2 big coyotes? Yeah. Coyotes generally run the same size,
So, but to him, it was just 2 big coyotes.
Oh, they were only about 5 feet at the back, Bettina. Don't worry about it. I'm your father. I'm telling you. Only 5 feet at the back. Yeah, well, Dad, if they stand up, they're about 7.5 feet tall then,
my God. I used to hate when they weren't worried about it. And then like it's so many different stories I could tell you about it. They used to joke. They had the family joking on me at every like Thanksgiving dinner when they would come over there. What you doing? You out here taking pictures of Bigfoot? They were just the laughing stock. They thought it was so funny. I was like, I had to at times pretend like I didn't believe in it because they made me feel so silly about it. Sure. And I know what I saw was real, so it didn't take any convincing, but it's all like I like to say too, a lot of the time when it comes down to it is that also when it comes to certain topics and subjects and stuff, and when it comes to Black people, like certain things are taboo. Sure. From growing up because, your grandma and them like told you like, don't talk about this or that, or, everything was the devil. You know what I'm saying? Or evil spirits. You're going to conjure it up and make evil spirits come in your house. And to some degree, I feel like that there is some correlation between different things that happen to people who research Dogman and Bigfoot that do have paranormal activity happening.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or
Conjuring.
UFO.
Yep. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And it sounds like, sometimes to other people, they probably feel like we're just a bunch of tin-foil hat wearing idiots out here because, like, do you really mean to tell me you've seen a UFO before?
Yeah.
You really saw I've never seen Bigfoot, but you saw Dogman, you got paranormal activity, because it sounds crazy. But I really feel like that this stuff is intertwined in some kind of way.
Absolutely.
Whether they are all spiritual in nature or interdimensional, and they can manifest in whatever form that you are used to or whatever form they need to, depending on what location or what the situation is. If it's going to show up in your home, then maybe it might show up as a shadow man, or if it's out in the woods, then maybe it's going to show up as a Bigfoot or dog man, or if you're a paranormal investigator, then it's going to show up as a ghost or orbs. So I think that in some cases they are able to shapeshift.
Yeah.
How can I not say that they're not able to shapeshift, or even take that as a consideration when I've actually saw what, and many other people have seen this too, what I call the predator effect. You can see them. You can see the outline. I've seen them cloak. They can cloak in more than one way. It's just not only just the predator effect. Another way that I've seen them do it too is, I don't even know how to call this one. I guess I would call it the mist or the fog.
Yep.
The mist or the fog, it looks like a foggy day. And so if you're looking at a bush or something like that, and there's no reason, there's not even, nothing else has any fog around it. There's not any fog, but this one particular area right there, right here, it's a fog. Like, you can see it with your naked eye, and you take a picture of it, and it's like, hold on, you just put a, so in my mind, it's like, really? Really, dog man, you just put a force field up there to try to cover your face? You don't think that I know that you're there? And I know it sounds ridiculous, but the more you look at them, so for the viewers that's listening and watching, I take this seriously. I'm laughing about certain stuff is because, like, the more you watch and pay attention to them and study certain things that they do, especially if they frequent you, when you watch enough of what they do, you'll realize little things. There's little things you'll see to let you know when they're around. You can also feel it when they're around, but there's telltale signs to look for as far as they're concerned. But they cloak in different ways too.
Yeah.
I just want to throw that.
Same as Bigfoot, same as Sasquatch.
Yeah. And see, Jay, Bettina is a prime example of a person that has seen something, told other people about it, and then people are like, yeah, sure. They make fun of you.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a good thing she didn't decide to not keep going with it, because she wouldn't be where she is today.
Exactly.
But I mean, she came out with it and said, yeah, I saw it. I don't care what you think, but I know what I saw.
You got to be like that, because
Plain and simple.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, you have to just realize that if you bow down to what other people believe or what other people think, to me, like, I have this little, I always like to say, you can say whatever you want to say. Just because you feel like that it didn't happen, it doesn't change anything. Yes, it did. It did happen. I was there. You weren't. And whether you want to believe me or not, like, you just better hope something like this doesn't ever happen to you. If I turn around and I walk away from something, seeing something like that, that should be enough for a person that is your family or friend that's around you. That should be enough for them to know. If that's not something that you were originally doing before, and now has been something that you have invested your time into and researching and going to conferences and studying and taking pictures and video and learning more about these things, and that should be enough to let you know something happened.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Something happened. So I'm not going to let anybody take, because at the end of the day, something traumatizing enough or something like that we've been told is not supposed to exist. Why would you not want to delve into it and try to understand it? Why is it here? What do they want?
Right.
Why do they have an interest in certain people frequenting them and being on their property for enough time that they can just stand and watch you for hours?
Exactly.
They feel safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
They felt safe there.
Safe enough and comfortable enough, because nobody really goes back in those woods either, Nick.
Yeah.
Not even the key. I mean, just not out of fear. Nobody just most of the people in that end of the neighborhood are older. And then like when I grew up, there was a lot of younger kids our age in the neighborhood. So we would be all back there in the woods. There's a not a creek, but there's a pond back there.
Mhm.
Water
A
source.
water source, yeah.
Yep.
There's a pond back there. And then I went back there in 2022, August 20. I can't remember, 2022 or 2021. I went back there with a few other people, and they found while we were back there, because I've only gone so far, but there's a deeper depths that goes way into the deep, deep woods. And one of the people that was back there, the guy, he said, oh wow, he said, look, he said, there's another, what do you call it when the animals come through the trail enough? What do you call that?
Game trail.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
He said, oh wow, he said, this is a frequented game trail right here that cuts into these trees. So it wasn't just like a open path. Something that created a path through those trees, like it was an opening, and you could tell that it was something that had to be big to do that, because it was of a taller stature, but the grass and stuff was laid down back there. And as I was getting ready to step through, the third person that was back there was scared, and so they was like, no, I don't want to, don't go any further, come back. They wanted us to come back, but I didn't want to come back. I wanted to go further, because the first person was like, you can actually hear, they said you could hear running water source back there. So I don't know if that was a river or a creek further back into those woods, but there are deer back there. I do know that there's deer pellets back there. There's all kind of stuff. Rabbits, armadillos are back there. It's all kind of wildlife.
Big food source for a dog, man.
Absolutely.
Water, food source, and
Yep.
probably have a couple caves. Now, Bettina, your parents' house, did it have a chain link fence around the backyard?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, about a 5-footer, you think, or bigger?
I'm gonna say probably 4 or 5 feet tall.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
I mean, not that a dog man will pop over that in 2 seconds.
It could.
But,
oh yeah.
But I
I
mean,
don't
even
understand at any point being back in that yard, being in that backyard, at any point they could have came across that fence at any time.
Yeah, that fence wasn't it wasn't going to deter them at all. No, I was just curious, about where they took a boundary stance at and just observed.
Their boundary stance was that tree line. I'm gonna have to send you a picture of it, and if you want to just present it and just talk about it for a few minutes or something like that on your next show, then you can do that, or at some point if you want to have me back. But I'll show you that. But they had specific spots they like to stand at. One of their favorite spots was directly behind that chain link fence in that tree line that comes to the forefront. Like I was telling you, close to where I was at in the backyard. Right. That was their favorite vantage point. So even if I was outside of the gate and standing under the carport by the door, getting ready to go in or something, they can see everything from where they were. And sometimes then there's several different types. Now that's just the one that I like to stand at that part right there. That one is the one I call the Black German Shepherd or Anubis Dogman. I think I've sent you that before, Nick.
Yeah.
Black German Shepherd and Anubis Dogman, and it just, if I was out there for an hour, it was out there for an hour. I don't care how long I was out there. It would stand there. I didn't know how tall it was at the time, but I knew that it was upright on 2 feet. I know that the tree cover was pretty heavy, but it stood high enough that I could see its the German Shepherd, pointed ears. It didn't have, if it had amber eyes, then it didn't this day. This one had black eyes. They were black. Or maybe black with whites of the eyes. I don't know, but all you could see was black. It had the elongated snout, and it just watched. They're very still. They make sure not to move, and if they do move, they try to make sure to move with the movements of the leaves or the wind, like, as it blows through the leaves. They don't want you to see them move.
Kind of like when they pace you out, when you're walking, they're walking, when you stop, they'll stop dead. I've had that happen with Sasquatch many a time, escorting us out when they don't want us in there, they'll walk and you walk, stop and you stop.
Yep. Yeah. So it's just several different things, but I know, that's one type. So that's that vantage point there. But I never felt threatened. Like I've never felt threatened. There was only the 2 times I was afraid. That first night, the first encounter, and the second time was the incident in the backyard. Now, what I failed to mention during that incident in the backyard was that at that same time, not only was that one with the black one I told you about that was in the tree, that all you could see of it was its head.
Mm.
But that wasn't the only one that was in that tree. There was another one there too. But this one, you could see its whole body from head to toe.
Okay.
It's standing at a side profile like that, looking off to, I guess what would have been my left is right. It's standing at a side profile, so I'm looking at it from the side, but it's standing upright on 2 feet. You can see, I called them based on how they look, and I would just pretty much call them off like a dog. So this one I called the gray wolf or husky Dogman, because it had the dark gray head and neck, shoulder, body, but then the snout was like either light gray or white.
Okay.
Like either light gray or white. It's looking to the side. You can see this eye on this side. Well, if you can see this eye on this side, you could see both pointed ears on top of the head. Then when it comes down to the upper shoulder area and it comes down a little bit to the waist, there's a branch with heavy leaves or whatever going across that area of its waist. But then below that layer of branches and leaves, directly below that, you can see the upper thigh hock area. And then it comes down, that's still the same color as the upper body, the charcoal gray. And then as it goes down to the feet are light gray, light gray or white, the same as the snout.
Right.
So that's that. So I was aware.
How far away you think was it from the backyard where you were standing?
So I was standing in the backyard, so I guess I'd have to say, like, if I walked to the back of the fence, if I'm in the middle of the yard where I was when I heard look over here and up and into the trees, I guess, then if I'd walked to the back of that fence, jumped over the fence, crossed the ditch, and just walked across the field just a little bit, then I'd have to say, I'm not good at gauging yards and feet and stuff like that, so I'd say probably about 60, 70 steps would be face to face with it.
That's close.
Yeah, so it's just basically on the other side of the fence and in the field.
That is close.
Yeah.
But just hidden behind trees, so that's it. Like it's at the front of the field.
Did you notice any sort of a scent, a smell coming from them? Anything different?
I never did. I never noticed any scent or smells or anything like that coming from them. I never had that. And I really don't recall there ever been a time when there was a complete silence either, except for when Kumbo came to investigate.
Okay.
When Kumbo came, then there was an incident that happened when he was here. So when Kumbo came, we had an instance where, y'all remember when I told you that first encounter, that Dogman was standing in front of a big tree that night? Like that's right there at the beginning of that trail. I had told Kumbo about the encounter, but I didn't tell him where the encounter took place. So it was interesting because as we got ready to walk down that trail, Kumbo stopped in front of that tree. This is the tree where the first encounter happened. Where the Dogman was standing that first night. Kumbo stopped in front of that tree and said, "Oh, look, a sentinel tree." I said, "A what?" He said, "This is a sentinel tree." I said, "What is that?" He said, "It's where I guess they pretty much stake out like people, what they're coming and going to just watch you go about your everyday life and just kind of, I guess, pay attention to, I guess, what you're doing when you're coming in." What is the purpose of that?
Get a pattern down for you.
That's about it. Yeah, he's right.
I mean, I've dealt it with Bigfoot. They do the same thing. I've got pictures of one's 100 feet behind the cabin, just staring into my window. Just standing there, and on several occasions, and they're just observing, getting patterns down.
Just see if you're going to do the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I asked him, I said, how do you know it's a sentinel tree? Like, since you said sentinel, he said, so he parted the branches of that tree. And when he parted them, he said, you see this? He was showing me how all the bark, it literally looked like it had been cleanly shaved off. Like there was no more bark on it. It was just slick, clean, like you would use it for a walking stick or something like that.
Wow.
And all the branches like inside of that tree were like that. Now this tree, the way it's shaped, is not shaped like a regular tree. I always called it a bush because it was shaped like an umbrella somewhat. Like it was rounded at the bottom. It looked like a big, I don't know, fir tree or pine bush. I don't even know how to call it. But it was that tree, bush, whatever. It's tall, so it's a tree, I guess. But it's big enough underneath that about 20 or 30 adults could easily hide under there.
Wow.
And nobody would ever see them. So
Right.
that is the perfect tree. It's right there at the front of the trail.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how many Dogman you think can fit inside of that tree? If about 20 or 30 adults can fit under there. Kumbo even was like, yeah, it's a perfect hiding spot. That
Sure.
tree has so much cover on it in the summertime that if you were to like actually try to get out of the rain, you could get under that tree and not get touched by the rain at all.
Wow.
Yeah, they probably had a family of 4 to 7 in there,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
most likely.
Yep. Let it out.
Because remember, they're a bit wider and taller than humans. So,
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask you, Bettina. What do you, I'm real interested in that first one you were talking about with the massive looking one. That's got me very interested. Did you put a weight on him? You said maybe 3 times the size of Schwarzenegger, so that would have made him about 700 pounds, maybe, you think?
Based on its body, it's 8.5, 9 feet tall.
Yeah.
The upper body, not only was it muscular, it was very bulky.
Okay.
So it had some girth to it.
Okay.
I'm not good at gauging weight, but I guess I'd probably say about 600.
Yeah.
About 600,
Okay.
if not more than that.
That's not more, yeah.
But it was just a perfect. I actually looked at it and I thought, like, what a beauty. I mean, I was fearful, but at the same
Sure.
time, you also look at it like, oh wow, like what a beautiful specimen.
Mm-hmm.
It was gorgeous. I mean, you understand, like it was a perfect specimen for what it is.
For what it, yeah, I get you. For what it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, but what if it had been one of those moments like I think about the times like back in the day when kids from the apartments across the road would come back. Kids want to explore the woods. They don't live in that neighborhood, but they want to ride their bikes back there, just go back there exploring or anything like that. All these years, we didn't know like the Dogmen were back there. How long have they been back there?
Yeah.
Or they back there for 30 years? The thing knew who I was. It said it's just, but is that like, oh, I'm not seeing you out here. You always out here smoking, and it's okay. I'm not even threatened by you.
yeah.
And it basically turned its back on me that night. Like, I'm not going to go down on all fours. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to even worry about trying to hide now. I'm not taking off running. I'm going to casually walk.
It's the apex predator.
Yeah.
It knew your scent from the past because you grew up there, right?
Mm-hmm.
It probably had been stalking the woods for decades and it knew who you were. So you weren't a threat to it. Of course, it's going to turn its back on you then.
Right. Yep.
It turned its back and it continued on down that path. And I said, wow, I have a footprint that I've got out from back there. And I don't know if I've shared that with you. If not,
yeah,
you said
I remember that.
That's not a regular footprint.
No, that wasn't.
That's not a regular footprint. I showed that to Robin Haynes McCrae. She saw it.
Yep.
She said, oh yeah, she said, that's a Dogman footprint. Now, that was much bigger. I put that pine cone next to that for size comparison. We don't have, they say we don't have wolves here, but I was talking to somebody local. Actually, I can't remember who I was talking to not too long ago, but they said, yeah, we do have wolves here. They just covered up in line, just don't tell you that. But
Red wolf down that way, right, Nick?
Red wolf, yeah.
Yeah.
But they have supposedly went extinct a few years ago.
No,
Yeah,
no.
they say that. They say
They
the
s-
same thing about the gray wolf in the Adirondacks
Yeah.
up here. But you ask anyone around,
He's
they're
right.
here. I've seen them. They're around.
Exactly.
deny a lot of
Exactly.
stuff.
They may go away
Mhm.
100 miles or so, some other area, but they're going to always come back
Yeah.
to where they used to roam. You know, so it's, you know, extinct doesn't mean kaput. Extinct means, well, they moved out of the area generally.
Right.
Because like where Jay lives, you know, forget it. You're going to find a lot of them up there.
Mhm.
But Jay, I hate to say it, we ran out of video time here.
What?
We're probably, yeah. And so we're gonna have to pick up with Bettina
9:30
another time.
already?
9:33.
Oh my God.
9:33. She captured us in the moment, and we got
Oh my
into the story. And here I'm visualizing myself at her parents' house and the backyard. And I bet you they had a cornfield there at that time when she saw him. But you know, I can't prove it. But
And
we got
probably
we got to have somebody remote view it sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
it fluctuates. The most of what's back there, majority of the time, is cornfield or cotton field. The
Right.
last time I was back there, I'm gonna say back in October of last year, I went
Right.
back there to go explore again because they don't live there anymore.
Oh,
But some of the neighbors who have been living there also for years, I just go over there and visit them and use that as an excuse to go back there. Because I don't want to come out as weird either.
yeah, but I mean, of course, they're going to rotate the crops, you know, because they want the soil to be fertile. But a lot of the cases that I've investigated, and Jay, you probably come across the same thing,
Mhm.
is including Pennsylvania, which is near me, where we had a bunch of them. It's cornfields. They're in the
Yes.
cornfields for some odd reason. They
Yep.
like the cornfield.
The
So
ones they saw in North Carolina, they were in a cornfield.
yeah,
Well, it's a food source and it's also perfect cover.
exactly. Oh, exactly.
The
Exactly.
corn is deep because
Yeah.
I got actually caught up back there in August of last year in the cornfield, and it was like a maze, and I got scared and panicked, like,
Sure.
oh my God, are we gonna find
yeah.
our way out of this?
Absolutely.
Over here in
It's
Jersey, we
perfect.
have cattle corn, and I'm going to tell you, those fields are thick and
Thick,
deep,
thick.
and
Helps you up,
you don't
too.
want to get lost in them. We actually carry cans of red paint when we go through those fields, and we put, you know, straight lines. And I mean, it's not going to hurt the corn. It's cattle corn, first of all. It's
Yeah.
not going to hurt the corn. We spray the stalks so that we get out, you know. So, I mean,
Mhm.
some of those things are pretty high. You're talking 10-foot stalks.
Sure.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, and you're going to be under them? No. But
Yeah.
So
anyway, Jay,
that's
go
perfect
ahead.
for 'em.
Yeah. Bettina. So yeah, you've got more to talk about. We'd love to have you back on.
Absolutely, y'all let
That
me
went-
know.
That
And
went
I
very
will come back.
quickly, and
We'll
yeah,
bring
we'd
the
love to have you
pictures.
back
We'll
on.
bring all the pictures and photos this time. And
Yeah, we'll share them and stuff if you don't want.
Yeah.
If you want on, we can screen share them or whatever. It doesn't matter.
I'll have some better ones of what I have here. And we can
yeah,
blow
we
them up.
definitely want to have you back on for sure.
Yep.
All right, thank you guys so much for having me
Yes,
on the
thanks for
show.
coming
All
on,
right, just-
Bettina.
Yep.
And
Right.
just hang out for a second if you can after I stop the recording.
Okay.
And everyone, we will see you again. We'll see you Wednesday for the Cryptic Consortium, and or Thursday when I get it posted, actually.
And everybody have a great night. Great
have a great
rest
night.
of the weekend. And if you
God
can,
bless.
on the Cryptid Consortium, catch our last show, the Men in Black one. I mean, it went down a lot, not just a rabbit hole, it went down about 8 or 9 different tunnels, you know, different ways. And we're going to have to do a part 2 and 3 on it. So, but we'll have a great night, great weekend. Thank you all for showing up. Bye-bye.
God bless everyone.
Take care, Bettina.
Good night.